Neos is based on a lot of new technologies. So in the beginning, it might be a bit confusing and you'll need a bit of time to learn it. But as soon as you started to use it, you'll see how powerful it is and you'll never want to miss it ever again. Neos is also extremely flexible and provides many different ways to achieve the same goal. So in this course, I'll give you a very opinionated way of building Neos websites, which is based on the best practices I have distilled from the Neos core community. So the first question is, what do you actually need for a website? We have four things we need for a website. The first one is we need to have some kind of configuration of a website. We call it settings, where you define, for example, what kind of languages do you support, or how the system can connect with the database. The second thing we somehow need to structure the content of a website. And we'll go into how that data is structured. Then we need to render that data so end users can use them on the website. And we need, of course, content, which is entered by editors. So Neos saves all configurations in so-called YAML files. It's a very simple way of writing configurations. It always is indented by 2 spaces, and it allows you to configure the system. You'll not have to spend too much time on it. There's a lot of great default configurations, and you'll just have to add a few things which match your own. We'll go into that in detail in later steps. I just want that you have seen how YAML files look like. This one here is an example where we define 2 languages for the website. One is English and one is German. And the really cool thing about that is, in contrast to saving configurations in a database, like for example WordPress does, that it's very easy to commit changes to Git to work locally and then deploy those automatically without needing data migrations. And if you have worked with multiple people on one website project, you really know why this is great. You don't have to exchange databases anymore and anything. It just works really, really nice. The second part is we need to define a data structure. And in Neos, we call the way we define data structure, we do it with node types. And there are 2 different types. You can create either document node types or content node types. So with node types, we define how content can be edited, and then the editor can create the content based on that configuration. I just want to show you how it looks like. So what you see here is I'm defining a document node type for something I call a home page. It inherits from Neos document. And we define an icon for the backend and things. And the main thing here is we're defining 2 properties. One is some text, which is called footer info, where you would have something like copyright 2018 by some company. And we have footer items, which are links to different other pages. So this is, after you have written a few of those, this is really, really simple and fast to write. And the great thing is that all the content is structured. So if you later like to present it in a different way than you did right now, it's very simple to do that. So the next step, which of course we have to do both for the backend and for the end users, so the front-end website, is that we somehow have to render that content. So Neos uses a lot of different technologies here, which sound more complicated right now than they are actually. The things we use for rendering is Fusion, and to get content we use EEL and flow query, and for actually writing the markup, there are right now 2 options. One is called Fluid and one is called AFX, and we'll use AFX because that's the new standard. This can look something like this. So here you see we define how a home page is rendered. We say it inherits from abstract page, which we defined before. And then in the body, we have a main content, which is all the content which the editor added on that page. And what we just do here right now is that we wrap the main content in a HTML tag called main class. And you'll see this EFX looks very similar to how React does rendering. So The last thing, of course, which is missing is the content. The content is added in the Neos backend. For that, we have a very modern backend, which shows you the content as it will look in the end. So we have structured inline editing. So let's talk about technologies a bit. As you probably already know, Neos is based on PHP. The cool thing is you'll normally not need to write PHP for simple websites, and only if you require APIs or integrations, you'll start using PHP, which makes upgrading of Neos to new major releases very easy because there are no migration problems. So if you build a website, we expect that you use Git. Git is a technology to versionize your code, and it's based on the PHP technology Composer, which is a package manager. So if you're familiar with front-end technologies, you might know NPM or Yarn, and it's the same for PHP. So you define which external packages you require, and it will load it into. And of course, it's based on Flow, which is the framework below Neos, and then on Neos. So a lot of the code you write will look very simple and very structured because it's based on these great technologies.